sewing friends. Joanne Banko here from letsgosew.com. Today, we've got a TN tutorials show for you that you are going to love. I have none other than the wonderful, fabulous, famous Annie Unrein from byannie.com. Many of you know her and have loved her for a long time, but I'm sure for some of you, she is new. So I just can't wait to have her on today, and we're going to be doing a TN tutorials. It's kind of a little play on words. I usually have my tea here. Let me see if I can see the comments here to make sure everybody can hear me. Looks like they're coming in, so looks like everybody's rolling in here. I'll say hi in just a minute. But TN tutorials doesn't always mean it's tea related. It may just be a topic that starts with a T, but I do love tea. If you love tea too, let me know. And it's just kind of fun to build a show around it. So hello to the Let's Go Sew family of friends. I'm just so glad to have everybody here today. I am drinking ordinary black tea, just nothing special, but it is sweetened with honey from my neighbor that moved in just recently in a house that's just behind me. And I've also put milk in it. I don't do dairy, so I have walnut milk in here. Anybody ever tried walnut milk? It is, it's very good. It's very good. It's a little richer than almond milk or the soy milk, I think, and it just tastes good. And I'm drinking it out of my beautiful cup given to me by my friend Kim. So Kim, if you're on here, cheers to you. Thank you very much. I'll take a quick sip. All right, let's see. I want to say hi to a few friends here before I bring Annie on. Caroline is here drinking her chai tea. That sounds good. Thank you, Janice. I love the cup too. Let's see. Mary and Mike B from Buena Park. I don't know where that's at exactly. You might need to tell me. Anne is here from Virginia. Anne, you're a frequent friend here, and I love seeing your name, as well as Karina. Karina, you are all the way out there, because it's always in Norway, and it's always a thrill to see you too. And Marianne from my very own home state of Ohio, great to have you here. Barb from Wisconsin, great. Sandra says she loves Annie's patterns. Me too. Hi, Celeste. Hi, Julie. Great to have you. Christy's here. Diane's here. Deborah's here. Susan's here. Cindy's here. Sandra's here. Hey, Sandra. Kathleen is here. Oh, so many of you. Vanessa's here. Hey, Forrest. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Stephanie is drinking green tea. Yeah, I have that on a very regular basis. Hey, Marion. Good to have you here. Julie from Ohio, too. And Marie, you're in Ohio, right? I think. I hope you're feeling better. I've been there, done that, and don't want to do it again. So I feel for you. Hope you get well soon. And let's see, Julie's here from Ohio. Katie. Hi, Bobby. Good to have you here. Thank you. I am feeling better. This show was supposed to be held 2 weeks ago, and unfortunately I had to cancel. And just so glad that Annie could reschedule so soon. And it is just going to be a great show. So without any further ado, I am going to bring Annie in. Hello, Annie.
Hello. Thank you for having me join you today for a tea party.
Oh my, thank you for being here. Yeah, virtual tea party is always a fun thing, isn't it?
It is. I love the idea.
It is great. So do you have any particular tea that you like, Annie?
You know, I usually start every day with a cup of Awake from Tazo Teas. It's an English breakfast style tea, and I usually heat enough water to make 2 cups, and I make 1 cup that I drink hot, and the other cup I use the same tea bag to make a second cup that I stick in the fridge, and I have iced tea later in the day. So
Well, that's
it's
a
my way.
cool.
I'm a Coke drinker, and it's my way of not drinking so much Coke. I, uh, I try to limit myself to 1 a day, and that way the tea helps give me that little boost I need.
I gotcha. I gotcha. So it's got a little bit of caffeine in it, right?
A little bit. Yeah.
Oh, everybody's rolling in and saying hello. You don't need a whole lot of introduction because you are in my world very famous, famous to many people and much, much loved. But Annie, you are from byannie.com. And tell us just a real brief little thing about what your company offers.
So we primarily focus on patterns, and for bags, primarily things to organize your fabrics and tools and supplies, purses, travel bags, things like that. And then we carry the supplies to make them. So I created a product called Soft and Stable that we put in things to make them stand up and hold their shape. We sell zippers, hardware, strapping, all kinds of different things like that, but things geared towards sewists and quilters both.
Very good. I've got some great by Annie items close by. One is so full of stuff that I'd be like, no way could I move it. I've also got your wonderful flip out. Is that what it's
Flipping
called?
out.
Flipping
Yep.
out. I have to say that both of these were made for me by my dear friend Jan, who is
Lucky
like
you.
the quintessential by Annie bag maker. I mean, I'd love to introduce the two of you someday because
That
she
would
is
be
just
fun.
constantly churning out new by Annie bags. There are literally people all over the Northeast that are carrying one around right now that she has gifted to them.
That's
So
great. What a great friend.
yeah,
That
she's a great
bags can be
lady.
a labor of love, and when somebody is willing to part with them and give it as a gift, that is really impressive to me. Yeah.
You're not kidding. Whenever she shows one, I teach a local group of ladies on a monthly basis, ladies and gentlemen. If a gentleman wants to come, occasionally they do, and she brings them for show and tell, and everybody is just always in awe over them.
That's great.
So, and we hope to do some classes soon, either with her as an instructor, or possibly myself or somebody else. We're lining up some things. I have a friend who has opened up a new sewing education studio.
Nice.
She formerly was a Janome dealer and sold sewing machines, obviously. And then she decided that her love is teaching, so she's opened up a whole studio dedicated to education. And we're
Boy, that's fabulous.
making lots and lots of plans for that.
Nice.
So. Okay, Celeste, I'm going to answer your question real quick. Can you post a link to your teacup small placemat? I don't have it on a placemat right now, so if you can give me a little more information on that, if I can find the information, I will get it to you. And Dawn is here from Creative Appliques. She met you just recently at the Houston Quilt Festival, so she's gets so many compliments every time she has something that's from you.
Nice.
She is also a digitizer, Dawn Chase from creativeappliques.com.
Nice.
So a lot of her embroidery could definitely be used to embellish. So isn't it the fun of all of this that there's just so many ways we can mix and match our personal love in the sewing space, what we like to do best, and take a pattern like yours, take all of your wonderful products, and then customize it and personalize it to make our own.
Make it your own.
Exactly. So I'm just going to pull up a quick little picture of the item that we're featuring today, which is your by Annie pattern that is called Time for Tea. So let's take a look at that. There it is. So you're going to all get to see this live and in person. And Annie's got some great tips and tricks to share with you. and then I have a few of my own. So tell us a little bit about the pattern, Annie, and what you're going to be showing us today.
All right. So one thing I want to say before I go too far is that Time for Tea is an older pattern. I actually wrote it in 2013, so 10 years ago. And it's old enough that the measurements in it are listed width by height, where when we switched our illustrations to being done by a graphic designer to go height by width. So if you're used to making current by Annie patterns, keep that in mind as you cut your pieces out on this, because it's going to be different than what our standard is now. It was also illustrated by me, so the illustrations are not nearly as good as they would be today, but it's a simple pattern to make and fun to do in lots of ways. So basically the pattern includes 3 little projects. One of them is a little tea cozy that you can use to put over your pot of tea to help keep it warm, protect your teapot, and just add some decor to your kitchen. It's designed to not be quilted, so we use Soft and Stable in it. Soft and Stable has really great insulative qualities, so it's going to help your tea stay hot longer. But you can do a little patchwork on this border that goes across here. Then you add strips top and bottom. You do the back just plain. You can add a little hanging tab on it so you can grab it and pull it off the teapot. And then there's just a loose lining on the inside. I do have a couple of other versions here that I made that I did things a little bit differently. I didn't want to do all the patchwork on the border on this one, so I just did a strip and then I quilted in between to mimic patchwork and added little buttons in between each of those. On this one, I did the plain strip, and I'm not sure if you can see this, but I quilted lines in between to again mimic the patchwork. So lots of ways you can do that. Of course, you could skip it if you wanted to do an embroidery design or something on here. You could make this just all one piece and feature that on the front. So lots of ways to do that. And we'll talk about how it's constructed in a little while. The pattern does include instructions for customizing the width. It tells you how to measure your teapot and what you'd need to change on the pattern if you need it to be a little bit wider. This one fits fairly well on this teapot. This is a little bit fatter teapot, and if I try putting it on there, it fits, but it would be better if it was just a little bit wider. So make sure you follow the directions in the pattern and measure your teapot before you go too far. Also included in the pattern is a little mug mat that you can set your tea and your cup and saucer on, your pot of honey. And then there's another little bit larger mat that I like to put my plate of cookies on or put under the teapot. So all 3 of those are included in the pattern, and just great ways to practice working with Soft and Stable, learning about quilting through it. And Joanne's got some really awesome tips to share for doing that. So just a fun, simple little project to make.
Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. I love the way you put all those little pieces and parts with it together to make a really beautiful table setting. And Janice is tempted by your cookies. Do you want to tell us what kind they are?
Those are cookies that are left over from Christmas. I bought at Costco the 410 thing of the little butter cookies. I love them. I've gone through almost 410s on my own, I think. So this is about the end of them, though. My favorites are the ones that have the little sugar sprinkles on the top. So not too many of those left in that tin, but
one of life's little pleasures for sure.
Yes.
A cup of tea and a couple cookies.
Yeah, those just really make that cup of tea so much more enjoyable.
Absolutely. Well, we've already got just one question, so why don't I go ahead and bring that up? She loves the blue fabric.
This actually is an older fabric. I probably made this 10 years ago. It was called Blue Eden, and it was from Timeless Treasures, I believe. I loved this line too. I also used it. It had a border print in it. We have a pattern for a placemat. You can get a little bit better idea. It had this beautiful border print that I centered on here and then just added some of the other prints around it, did some patchwork down at the bottom. and then a really more neutral one on the back. The beauty of working with soft and stable is you don't have to quilt it like you would if you were doing batting. And so if you look at this, the soft and stable is not connected at all except on the edges. When I let go of it, it's like a magnet and it pulls it back into shape. So you can make a completely reversible placemat and have two very different looks on your mat. We just cut the backing big enough that it folds around to the front and makes the binding. So that's a different pattern called, I believe this is So Simple Strips placemats, or maybe Easy Flip and Sew, but we've got several placemat patterns for those. So, but it's a beautiful line of fabric, and I love the blue and white.
It's gorgeous. Yeah, we were talking earlier about how much we like that blue and white combination. And the other thing is, it's so common that you're going to be able to find blue and white fabrics almost anywhere.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And then, of course, if you watch a little bit what I'm going to show today, you can create your own. I didn't do any blue and white, but you certainly could do some blue and white yourself. So what do you think? Should I show some of my custom quilting samples?
For sure, because I love those ideas. I can't wait to see.
Let's see. I'm going to see. Let me just test this layout and see if that'll bring us. I'm going to scoot myself over there. And let's see. I think I'll do that. Okay, so you can see a little bit better. All right, so when Annie and I were talking about this, obviously Annie has that beautiful tea cozy with the patchwork. She's going to show you, how she does her version. Is my microphone not quite loud enough? Peg says my microphone needs help. Anybody else let me know? I may be, does it sound okay to you, Annie?
Yes. Sounds
okay. I might be occasionally covering it up because I talk with my hands. And I promise you, I'm not even Italian, but I might be doing that. So, all right. And if it's not loud enough for you on your end, just crank up the volume just a little bit. That might help you. Okay, I'm getting thumbs up. So we were talking about all the options, and many of you here follow me regularly. If you don't, I encourage you to do so. You can like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. I do regular YouTube shows, YouTube live shows. I love bringing on guests. I love to share my own ideas as well. But, there's nothing better in sewing than mixing and matching our minds together. It's kind of like we do when we mix and match patterns and fabrics. We all think differently and do differently. And it's really great to kind of feed off of each other. So, but many of you that are here regularly, you can find me at letsgosew.com, and I do a lot of different things. My first love always started out as garment sewing, but when embroidery came around, then I started doing a lot of embroidery, whether it's on ready-mades or on garments constructed from scratch, or quilts, or placemats, or pillows, or curtains, or anything. So I dabble in a lot of different things, and I really love to teach you to make the most of your machine. So I am going to show some things today that some of you out there are going to go, ooh, I got that on my machine. Ooh, I can do that. And others of you, maybe you don't have embroidery. Maybe you don't care about embroidery. That's okay. I'm going to show you some things that you can do on the sewing side of the machine as well. And you just pick and choose what works for you. I absolutely have something for everybody here today that you can make use of. Okay. All right. So let's start out by talking about the embroidery. And when it comes to embroidery, again, we're all over the map as far as machine brands. I am a Brother ambassador, so full disclosure on that. So I use Brother products, and we all know, though, there's a lot of options out there. There are opportunities not only for things that are built into your machine, but opportunities to create designs using various software programs. So again, not going to be too specific today. I just want to give you kind of a splash of ideas. And I will tell you that I'm going to create a follow-up blog post with more details, but I really want to focus on Annie's Tea Cozy today. So I'm just giving you a few little tips and tricks from my side. So let's talk about quilting in the embroidery hoop. This design was from a built-in design on my machine, and I do have the ability on my machine to select an embroidery design and then ask the machine to create a fill pattern, which I'm going to call a quilting pattern, with fill stitches that fill the area around and outside of the embroidery design. So in this particular case, if you look close, you'll see that those quilting lines meet the edge of the letter A, but they're not underneath it. So these stitches are not overlapping. They're created around it. And that is a feature of the My Design Center possibilities that we have in my particular broiler machine. But again, you may be able to do this with software. Of course, if you don't have this option, you can create, whether you're doing it by machine embroidery or by you manually stitching, doing your own quilting, and we'll talk about that too. But you could certainly do the entire area with the quilting stitches and then embroider over the top of it. The benefit of this is, number one, you don't have the bulk of stitches on top of stitches. And you also don't have the issue that you might encounter if you wanted to use contrasting colors. If I wanted to use a light color for my lettering and a darker color for my fill, I could run into issues with that shadowing through. So the benefit of having it just surround it and not be, underneath it is certainly an advantage. Now, I'm just showing you 5x7 samples today. As we get into talking about this a little bit more, we can talk about how we could expand this to create a whole piece. Annie, your patterns and your instructions always pretty much tell the little oversized piece, and then if you were going to quilt it, which, like you said, you don't have to quilt it, but if you are going to quilt it, then you do that by quilting on an oversized piece, correct?
Yes, we usually add at least an inch to each side so that if you have any shrinkage as you quilt or if it gets wonky, you've got enough to trim it to a good finish size. We do it a little bit different when we're not quilting, and I'll show you that. But again, it's cut bigger so that then when you cut the template out, you can line everything up and get perfect edges on everything.
Exactly. And so, like we said, you don't have to do this quilting at all, but it's added embellishment is what it is.
Sure.
So whether you do this on the embroidery side or the samples that I show you on the sewing side, it's entirely up to you. If you want your fabric to be the focus, then you can do that. But one thing I love about this type of option, of all the options I'm going to show you, is that you could take plain fabric. I should tell you what fabric I'm using. I've got just a batik that's got a very faint tone on tone. We all have our taste. I'm not a bright person as far as I hope you think I'm a bright person, but I'm not a bright person. When it comes
mentally, for sure.
When it comes to fabrics and even clothing, I'm a little more on the subdued side. So I love cream colored. I've always been this is just my favorite. And then I just used a cotton sateen for my lining, and then of course my wonderful soft and stable inside. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I just wanted you to know what fabrics I'm using. So small pieces, 5x7. You're gonna get a little bit more information on how you could create larger sizes for this and link it together in a minute. But I want you to know, if you have a machine with the largest capability as a 5x7, you can still use most of these techniques. You don't need it large, but I just want to have some small samples to show. So another little tip here is, if you're using this feature, to consider using matching thread on the bobbin. So I used machine embroidery thread. Doesn't really show as shiny as it is in person, but Annie, you and I were talking earlier, and I said I love using embroidery thread because it catches the light, and when it catches the light, it just boom, pops out. And
it has such a beautiful sheen, and it really attracts your eye.
And if
Looks
you,
gorgeous.
in particular, if you're using polyester embroidery thread, it's very strong, it's very color fast, and you don't have to worry about using it for items like this.
Right.
But one of the reasons I like to use the bobbin weight thread is it does tend to balance out straight stitches a little bit better. If you're quilting with straight stitches, depending on your machine, sometimes you'll see a little hint. They call it eyelashing, where there's just maybe a dot where the let's say if I had black thread in there, that black dot might show up. But by using matching thread, you never have to worry about that. For most embroidery that's a big fill pattern, with or a big filled in pattern, we don't need to be concerned about that. But with more outlines, it could do that. The other reason is we all know if we invite our friends over for tea or tea party, some of them might be our fellow stitching friends, right? And what's the first thing they're going to want to do? They're going to want to look at the wrong side of your tea cozy. So again, we'd just be doing this, pre-quilting the entire piece and then cutting out the tea cozy on top. So that way, when they look at the wrong side, they're going to see a good looking wrong
product
side. And then the other thing that I've done, or that I haven't done that I could do, is I could have turned off my jump cutter. So it's just another tip for those of you who want to recreate something like this. If you have the jump cutting feature on your machine, what it does is when it finishes a spot, it ties off the thread and then it cuts it and then moves to another position. Well, when it does that, it tends to leave a little bit of what I call, fuzz. And it's just the nature of the beast. So if you don't want that little bit of tails, to show, you can then turn off your jump cutting. There's a setting in the machine, turn it off. It will still tie off and it will still move, but it will drag a tail of thread that you could then clean up later on. So that's just another option. So again, this was all built in. Now, very popular today is something we call edge-to-edge quilting. And I'd love to know in the chat. I can't catch up on all of it right now, but I always read all your comments. How many of you have tried edge-to-edge quilting? It's done in an embroidery capacity with an embroidery hoop, an embroidery machine. And it's done with specially digitized designs, whether they're built in or they're available separately. So they are made to be connected. So again, I've only done one motif, but you can see where this either was the starting or the ending. They're made so that if we wanted to stitch another one, like this spot here would then match up with this spot here. So I could continuously make block after block. And then they're also designed so that you can, match them from top to bottom, and you could create as big of an area as you wanted to. So this shout out to the company that made this one. This is Designs by Juju, Juju, Juju. Very popular company. They make a lot of designs for a lot of different hoop sizes. And then the last but not least on the embroidery side is plain old ordinary stipple fill stitching. Now, maybe some of you out there can do your own stippling on the sewing side of the machine. I have, that has never been something that worked out well for me. Annie and I were talking about it earlier, and I said, I think I took classes and I tried really hard and tried to learn how to do it, and I just always struggled. And finally, one day I came up with something that I used to forgive myself for my lack of capacity on that. And I was trained in fashion school to do custom sewing, couture sewing, factory method sewing. And really everything we did, the only time we sewed backwards was when we did the back stitching at the beginning and the end of the seam. So I think for me, I just, whether it's a mental block or just I didn't inherit the gene, I have trouble swirling backwards and then swirling back forward again. So yeah. I love filling in with stippling on my embroidery machine. Again, might be built into your machine. You can also buy patterns that are already done for you. And the beauty of this one is that almost no matter how you connect it, you don't have to have a specific connecting point. You just do another hooping and another hooping and another hooping. get them so they're close together, and the overall look to your eye just sees all those squiggly stitches. So it's just not an issue. So again, I've got my quilt sandwich here is my batik, and then my soft and stable batting, and then my cotton sateen lining, which, believe it or not, is actually a curtain lining. But it's a high quality brand, and it was not too thick, not too thin, just right. It's so smooth that I love using this as a quilt backing. So always hunt in your sewing shop, quilt shop, sewing shop, whatever, for the things that you maybe wouldn't think you would use, and give it a try. So all of this was hooped in, all but one. Actually, I did do one in a regular hoop, but I used primarily for this process the dime, help me out on the name here.
Digitized images for machine embroidery, right?
The magnetic hoops, the actual magnetic hoops, the name of them I know as well as my own. So somebody help me out in the chat here. Just drawn a blank on it. So I know many of you know what it's called. Mighty hoop? Mighty hoop? No, it's not the mighty hoop. It's not the mighty hoop. Snap Monster. Yes. Snap Monster. Thank you, Star Raymond. That is what it's called. Comes in a wide variety of sizes. It's got such a strong magnet that you actually need to keep this little plate in between it. But when you put your fabric layers in there, if my fabric layers were in there, I just simply snap that down, and those magnets are so strong that the magnets on the upper side of the hoop will connect to the metal on the bottom side of the hoop. And not only is it just super easy to hoop because you're just literally snapping it together, it also makes it very adjustable. This is very easy to remove and replace, unlike what we have here, which are hoops with screws. So this is a standard 5x7 hoop. This is a 5x7 monster hoop. And the difference is huge when you're actually stitching this. In order for me to get those layers, and I actually did the stipple one in a standard hoop to prove it could be done. So you don't have to have the magnetic hoops, and they come in a variety of different types depending on your machine, but they sure are a benefit. So if you are considering doing this, definitely look into that. But in order to get those layers to fit within my inner ring and my outer ring of this hoop, my screw has to be loosened considerably, because that gap has to be set for the thicknesses of fabric that's going to go in there. And then it has to be snugged down so that there's no movement of that fabric. And there's an issue that has happened to many of us in machine embroidery. I call it hoop pop. You don't want to have hoop pop, because that means that
sounds like a bad thing.
And now you're unhooped. And now you got to get it back hooped again. So yes, you can do it, but you got to be very, very careful with this. So yeah, Chrissy, I agree. You love your magnetic hoops. It definitely makes a difference. Nancy, yep, absolutely game changer. Okay, so that's on the embroidery side of the machine. Let's talk about the sewing side real quick, because I have some very nice samples to show you on that. So again, if you don't care about embroidery, fine. You're going to get some good looking results with your sewing machine. And for everything I'm going to show you here in a second, you don't even need anything fancy, really and truly. Let's start with a standard ordinary straight stitch. And Annie, I love the way you were talking about it earlier, saying, with soft and stable, you don't need any quilting whatsoever. No. So it's totally optional. What I like about quilting with soft and stable is the dimension that it gives to the fabric. Right. Because it's now no longer flat. It's just it
adds a whole other design element to your project.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And as you can see, it also gives you the opportunity to do decorative things and showcase the stitches and use plain fabric. So this was done just with a standard straight stitch, ordinary straight stitch. I did put a walking foot on my machine, and I didn't use any adhesives. I know you've talked about that on other shows, and the way you showed it today, that you don't need to have adhesive to have your fabric cling to the soft and stable, that wonderful fuzzy nature of the soft and stable. It acts almost as a kind of a fabric magnet.
Yeah, that's how I term it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't need anything. I do tend sometimes to use some clips around the edges just to keep my layers smooth as I'm stitching. And my method for doing this, and we called this crosshatch quilting.
That's what I call it. Yep.
Exactly. I just literally mark an X. So from point to point on each side, and then I would have a line there, and I would stitch on that line. And then I switch to my walking foot with a guide, and I space out that guide, and I follow the previous line, and I just keep going. And I think you talked one day on one of your shows about how you like to do all one direction first and then go back in the other direction. That's exactly what I do. If I do crisscross,
start in the middle and work each side too, or do you do all of one side and then do all the other?
I do my X, and then I follow one part of that X all the way over to the left, but alternating left, right, left, right, left, right, and then I do the other leg of the X, left, right, left, right, left, right.
Yeah,
is that how you do it?
Exactly what I do.
Yeah, I don't get very much shifting that way. That works really, really good.
And I find that if I do, I can just smooth the fabric out as I go and keep it nice and flat, and it works really well.
Exactly. And we got a good question here, so I'm going to pull it up. Judy says, so sewing your patterns by Annie, can you use embroidery thread? I'm going to answer first and then you answer, okay? I'm talking about embellishing the fabric with embroidery thread. I'm not talking about constructing it with embroidery thread. What are your feelings on that?
We usually use a 50 weight thread for construction. The embroidery thread is usually a 40 weight thread, which is a little bit thicker. I don't think it would be a problem. The thing that I found with the embroidery thread versus like the So Fine number 50, which is what we use, is the embroidery thread is just a little bit slicker. And so if you don't have the opportunity to backstitch at each end, or if you're cutting threads, it's a little more likely that it might come loose. Like if you were sewing a handle or a strap in a tube, by the time you got it pressed and turned, your ends might come. It still happens even a little bit with the So Fine, but the So Fine has almost like hairs on it, more like a cotton thread, so it seems to not be as slick.
Okay.
So I prefer the 50 weight So Fine. Either one though is a polyester. I like to use polyester thread because it has a little bit of stretch. And so if your seam is going to get pulled at all, it doesn't pop. A lot of people though like to use cotton thread, and they have great results with that too. So I
would just say that, and I think you're concurring with me, that sewing thread that's designed for constructing is what you generally want to use for constructing. For one thing, with embroidery thread, you're wasting it. Embroidery thread, it's not expensive, but it's not generally the same cost factor as regular sewing thread. So you might as well save it. And it is a little, it's not really meant for you to sew seams with. It's really meant for the machine to do something automatic with. So handling it yourself can be tricky. And you're right, it tends to fray a little bit at the edges. And so, yeah. So that's how I actually mark it, and that's how I quilt it. Now, let's see, I got a question here. Well, that's not a question. That's June. Hi, June. Glad to have you here today. Barb's question was, what needle is best when sewing and embroidering using soft and stable? So since I did the embroidering and decorative stitching, in this case, we're going to call it decorative stitching, even though it's a straight stitch, I'll tell you what I used an embroidery needle. When I use, in most cases, when I use embroidery thread, I use an embroidery needle. If I don't have an embroidery needle in, then I have a top stitch needle. I did a show a while back on needles with representative from Schmetz,
Rhonda.
and I asked her, is the eye on a top stitch needle and the eye on an embroidery needle essentially the same? And she said yes.
Oh, that's
So
good to know.
you just need that larger eye for the thread. So speaking of larger eye, when I did this sample, again, you can't see it really well because you're not seeing all the detail, but I decided, well, I could use regular weight embroidery thread, but I have this beautiful 12 weight from a company called Wonderfil, Wonderfil, and they make a lot of embellishment threads, and they make 12 weight thread for decorative stitching, decorative applications. It's really the thickest thread that you can safely use in most machines. Once you get past that weight, you're getting into a little bit more of something that should be used on an industrial machine. But for this, I did use a top stitch needle. They recommend a size 14 top stitch needle. I had a size 12, and that worked fine. Now I tend to sew a little bit slower when I'm stitching, so the slower you sew, the more you can get away with, because you're not taxing the thread, you're not taxing the needle. So if you're gonna be a little more speed demon, you might want to switch to that size 14 that they recommend. I do fine with the size 12. All right, so that's that one. And then my next one, and in the bobbin for this, I just used regular embroidery thread, so that was a little on the thinner side. I did have to adjust my tension a little bit. I had to actually decrease my tension so that it looked prettier on the top side. But this also was a variegated thread, so it had that beautiful color variation. And then my next sample, again, super simple, super easy. Anybody can do it. I threaded my machine with one spool. I love the Exquisite thread by Designs and Machine Embroidery, and used a beautiful shade of pink and a beautiful shade of green. I then put my twin needle in my machine and selected a serpentine stitch. So I marked it the same way as I did for the cross hatching. It's just like you said, Annie, the stitch did all the work for me. It just did that beautiful swirling. And again, if you are on my email list, you'll get a post this weekend. If you're not on my email list, I encourage you to sign up, and you will then see what I'm talking about, because I will post all the details on this at letsgosew.com is where you can actually sign up. So very simple. And again, a way to use your twin needle. I used a 2mm twin needle, not very wide, but just wide enough to create that very pretty look. Almost looks like a shell kind of pattern, doesn't it, Annie?
It's really beautiful. Such a fun idea. I'd love to try that.
And then last but not least, many of us have decorative stitches coming out our eyeballs. Our machines are loaded with decorative stitches. Even if you have a lower end, I guarantee you have a lot of decorative stitches. And they're sitting there staring at you saying, why aren't you using me? Do something with me. Do something with me. I'm beautiful, please.
Yep.
So I know a lot of quilters like to use decorative stitches. And again, we won't go into too many technical details here today, but I'd love to know if some of you have tried to do decorative stitching over your quilt blocks, and especially where you have piecing, and you've had issues, and the struggle is real. Decorative stitches were designed to be sewn with a flatter, firmer, thinner surface. And maybe there are some you can get away with, but there's so much movement with a decorative stitch, and in particular, ones that have what I call satin elements, where there's a lot of buildup of thread. It's just very tricky to do this on a thick surface. So you're looking at my sample right now, and again, I've got that same batik, I've got that same beautiful soft and stable, and that lining, and I've got everything sandwiched together. So let's have a guess here. How in the world did I do this? Well, Annie, you already know, so let's just spill the beans, right? I did all of my lines of decorative stitching on just the layer of cotton with a stabilizer on the back. So again, we won't get into too many details. Stabilizer could mean you've starched your fabric heavily, so that's nice and firm. Stabilizer could mean you used a piece of adhesive backed wash away that would disappear when you're done. Stabilizer could mean you layered a piece of tearaway on the back. In this particular sample, again, I'll give you all the details in my post over the weekend, I put a piece of adhesive back stabilizer on the back, on the wrong side, and then I used a layer of lightweight tearaway. When I was done, I tore away the tearaway, tears away very cleanly from these types of stitches, and then I dissolved the wash away. Dried my fabric, pressed my fabric, then I layered it with my soft and stable and my backing and did those quilting stitches in between. So two-step process, but I'm able to still have the look of decorative stitches and a quilted piece, but I've just simply done my decorative stitching, separately.
First. Yeah,
And
such a smart idea.
Yeah. That stitch is built into, again, many machines. It might be called a mock hand quilting stitch. It might just be called a quilting stitch. It sews back and forth and then forward. So it creates a buildup of thread and just has a really nice thick look. So those are my ideas. Not that that's the be all and end all of it. I'm sure many of my friends out here, our friends, have other ideas, but it's just some ways to do things that are making the most of your machine, which is, in my world, what it's all about, making the most of the tools that you have at hand.
Yeah, and I just love the way you did that because it gives you the best of both worlds. You've got the beauty of the embroidery, and I could see doing that in different colors, and there's so many ways you could play with that. And boy, on a project like this, it would just be perfect. So
it would. I mean, it's ideal for many of your projects, really and truly.
Oh,
again,
yeah.
when you want to showcase the stitches instead of showcasing the fabric. So
yeah.
Let's see if I have any questions really quick. Okay, Celeste is answering Mary Ann. And Nancy says she uses her decorative stitches as often as she can. Good for you.
Yeah.
That, Christy, reminds you of a cobblestone path. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And my friend Christy Posick is here. She is also a by Annie bag maker extraordinaire, along with my friend Jan. Jan came in a little late, so Jan, you're gonna have to watch the replay to hear what I said about you. But Christy and Jan are very close friends and often make the same by Annie bag in different fabrics and for different people. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Nice to have local friends here showing up, along with my long distance friends. So Zena is asking, do you use the same thread in the bobbin when sewing faux leather bags? Zena, if I were sewing a faux leather bag, and I've done a little bit of that, I would be using 100% polyester sewing thread. I like the dual duty in particular for that, because it's a nice strong thread. Or Gutermann, I'm throwing out name brands here. Mettler is another one of my favorites, and I would wind the bobbin with the same exact thread. That would give you good results. All right, June says she loves by Annie bags. All right, Annie, I think it's time to showcase your tea cozy. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sounds good. I'm going to move my teacup out of the way.
Your empty teacup, by the way.
Empty teacup, yeah.
And I'll take
I didn't want to spill tea on my quilt, and I know me, so I'm much better off with water. So let's see. Should I turn this that way, Jake? Are we going to be able to put the camera up above on this? No. Okay. So I will hold things up. So the thing to know about this is, for the front, you've got a little pieced border, and then you have a strip of fabric below and above. So the first thing you're going to do is cut your pieces for that project. So that involves the strip for the top, the strip for the bottom, and then if you're doing the patchwork, a variety of strips in whatever colors you want. You have 8 of them, I believe, to do the patchwork that goes all the way across. If you're going to do a solid border like I showed you on the little one, these 2 here, you just measure the width across these pieces and you cut the same height and width as that directs. So super easy to do and a fun way to use really lots of fun fabrics from your stash. You're also going to cut a small rectangle that's going to be used to make the little loop at the top for lifting it off. And then you're going to grab your lining fabric and cut 2 pieces for what becomes the lining. There is a template in the pattern that you trace or just cut around to cut those pieces. It also has lines marked on it for where the border is. So you can, when you cut your piece out of the prepared piece, you know where to cut. I'm going to mention one thing. The pattern is written so that your lining lines up with your top when you sew it together, and you just turn it so that you don't see the lining from the front and you don't see the main fabric from the inside, and you top stitch all the way around to join those together. On this particular bag, I let my lining fold around. So instead of getting them even at the bottom, I left that a little bit longer and let that come around, and that gives you kind of like a little faux binding down there at the bottom. That's not bound, it's just my lining extending. So either way, my lining in this bag doesn't go quite all the way to the top because it extended there, but it was plenty for the teapot I had, so I didn't worry about that. So just a couple of options of ways that you can do that. You also need to cut 2 pieces of soft and stable, and these start out as rectangles. When we do patterns with by Annie, almost all the time we start with squares or rectangles so that you've got even edges to measure from with your rulers, and you assemble everything as far as you can, and then you do the shaping on it. So you're going to have one piece that will be the back of your cozy, another piece that will be the front of your cozy, and on that, you're going to mark some lines for doing your patchwork. So the pattern will tell you exactly where to mark those. You'll mark a line in from this side. Actually, as I was making this, I noticed that there is a small error in the pattern that I need to do. The picture shows you to mark the line, this vertical line, 3/4 of an inch from the side, but the words tell you to make it 1 inch. In the long run, it wouldn't matter because you'd have enough fabric, but the 3/4 inch is the proper one. So go by what the picture shows, which I have found most people do. They'd much rather look at a picture and see what it says than read the words. So I've never had anyone mention that mistake, so I'm guessing they figured it out or decided it didn't matter. So you'll have that one marked, and then you're going to do your piecing on that. So the first thing you're going to do is get your little pieces that you want to do your patchwork with. And you're going to position one so that it is right in between your horizontal vertical mark lines, and this edge is even with your side line that you marked. So you'll just put that in place, and then you'll take your next little strip. This is simple flip and sew piecing. You'll put that strip down, sew your 1/4 inch, fold it over and press it, add your next strip, fold it over and press it all the way till you get to the other side, and it will look like this. So I've got all my patchwork done on here. I've sewn through to the back, so I've got my seams on the back, and now I'm ready to attach the top and bottom. So I think the pattern tells you to do the bottom one first, but it doesn't really matter. One thing, if you're using a fabric that's directional, as you sew this, the top is going to be where the seam is. So I've got this little honeybee on here. I want him flying upright, so I make sure that the top edge is what I put even with my patchwork strip. Sew across that, press it, and just press it down. The beauty of soft and stable is that it's not a fusible batting, so it's easy to press on it. I usually set my iron on a medium heat, and I add some steam, so I can press my seam and press it down and get it nice and smooth. And once that's sewn on, then you'll take your top piece again, make sure you have it positioned the way you want, line that up with the top of your piecing, press it up, and then when you're done, you have a little piece that looks like this. So this is my front of my tea cozy all ready to go. Then I'm going to get my template out. I'm going to align it on here so that my border is right in between those lines on the side. I can either pin this down, cut a mark around it, and cut it out with scissors. I usually just use a rotary cutter. When I did these, I just used my 45 millimeter, but if you have a 28 millimeter, that's often easier for going around curves. So either one's going to work, but just get that whole piece set cut out, and then you will go around the outside edges and stitch. Actually, what the pattern tells you to do is mark it, stitch inside the edges, and then cut it out. And that always works better because you don't have loose edges flopping around. Then you'll take one of your backs that you cut, or the back that you cut out, put it on the soft and stable, smooth it in place, stitch around the edge of it, and cut it out. On this one, I find it difficult on my machine to do it with a walking foot. A walking foot's nice because it makes the layers move together evenly, but my opening on my walking foot, even if I put the attachments on, is so wide that it doesn't connect with the fabric when I'm sewing just 1/8 of an inch from the edge. So I just put on my quarter, or my number 1, or my 0 foot, which is the regular foot that comes with the machine. It's got an opening so you can see where you're sewing, but it's closed in front of the needle, so it holds the fabric down. And I just go 1/8 of an inch all the way around. I keep the fabric smooth as I go. And one thing that's really helpful for that is my Annie stiletto and pressing tool. I can hold it at a right angle to the fabric about 1 inch ahead of where I'm sewing, so that as I go, my fabric's not pushing away. And that way, when I get to the end, it's perfectly even. I don't have a little pleat over here because my fabric moved as I went. So having this and just moving it as you go is one of the best tips I can share for attaching fabric to soft and stable. Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to miss that. So then all you do is cut this piece out. You put your front and, oh no, one other thing. We have to make our little handle for the top. So that's just a 2-inch wide strip of fabric. You fold it in half, press it to mark the center, bring your raw edges into that center, press again, and then fold that in half and press it again. And when you're done, you just stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge all the way around. So then when you're ready to put it together, you'll have your front and your back. You'll center your little tab in the middle and sew it in place. Sew around the curved edges only. Don't sew across the bottom yet. You'll do the same thing for your lining. You'll put them together, leave an opening in the side of the lining, sew all the way around the bottom, turn it inside out, press it, top stitch around the bottom, and you're done.
Wow.
So super simple and easy to make.
Oh, so simple, so easy. I love it. I mean, and what a great gift it would make, you know?
Such a nice gift for
Especially
anybody
when you
who
add
drinks tea.
the other items that you've put in there. That really makes it special. I want to back up for just a second because Terry, our friend Terry, Terry's a great educator in her own right. She has her own YouTube channel and does wonderful, wonderful tutorials with Brother equipment. So thank you, Terry. I'm always honored to have you here with us. But she says she likes to use her dual feed foot. Yes. Again, I was trying to keep it a little generic today. And in the sewing world, a walking foot is available for just about every machine out there, not counting antiques, but if you have a machine that's zigzag, likely you could find a walking foot for it. So that just makes it, across all oceans. But you're right, the dual feed foot, which is a Brother designed foot that feeds with a belt instead of teeth. And it actually allows you to change the settings so that belt moves either faster or slower. Now, we could spill the beans here and just say that in the not too distant future, Annie and I are going to get together again, and I'm going to have the honor and privilege of talking about machine accessories and feet that can enhance your experience with sewing by Annie products. So we'll save that announcement for the future. But yeah, Terry, great point. And Ann says you make it look so easy.
It really is a so easy project.
Yeah. And June says she's tried a few different stilettos. I have too. This is so utterly comfortable. I mean, the design is just, it's exquisite in every way. It's just the right length, not too long, not too short. It feels good in your hand. It's got that nice flat spot for your hand to rest on. And also, I think you designed it that way. Tell me if I'm right. So that if you put it on the table, it won't roll off, right?
Yes, I got tired of digging around on the floor under my machine looking for my stiletto that had rolled off the table.
And then you want to tell everybody why the end looks like that?
Yes, and then if you're like sewing the ends of your binding together and you have one little seam to press open, you don't want to get up and go to the iron to do that. You can use this to press your seam open. Or, you're putting in a zipper and you need to finger press it to the back. This is a really great way to do that. Or you're working with something that you can't put an iron on, like vinyl or something. Great way to press your seams. And we spent a lot of time figuring out just the right angle to have that at so it's comfortable to do. And we take the tips and send them to a needle making factory and they sand grind them for us. So they have just a little bit of grippiness that when you're using your stiletto, your hand's not always doing this where it's sliding off as you're working. It stays there in place. And it also helps you grab the fabric and hold and position it in place. So I truly couldn't sew without it.
And I can feel it.
Yeah. It's not so rough that it snags on things, but it's amazing the difference that it makes.
It is. It is amazing. Absolutely. And Diane, I agree 100%. Annie's patterns, Annie's instructions, Annie's products. Annie herself is the best.
You guys are so sweet.
I'm not shy about saying that. I know I've got lots of thumbs up. Christy said, you sold me. I need one. You can get it at buyannie.com. But also, I know, Annie, you're wonderful at bringing the machine and fabric quilt shop dealers to the top of the food chain, so to speak, here. And
we
go ahead and give our little feel on that.
Yeah, we feel that local quilt shops are so very important to our communities of sewists, our communities of quilters, our communities of people that we live with. I mean, they are really important to the economy of your local area. And I hear all the time from people who say, I don't have a local quilt shop anymore. And it's because we shopped online or we went somewhere else to buy it. So we really, really, really stress shop first at your local quilt shop. Go there. If they don't have it, they can get it either from their favorite distributor or directly from us, but start there. We just are announcing on Saturday our local quilt shop contest. We have held this annually this will be our 7th annual contest. And last year we had almost 40,000 votes for, I think, 2,100 stores all around the world. We give grand prizes in the US, Canada, Australia, and the UK, and then we do regional prizes. So in the US, there's a winner in every state, in Canada, in every province, and in any country that wasn't included in the grand prizes, a winner there. And so we have about $50,000 in prizes that we give out. We have great sponsors. Any of the winners, except the ones overseas, we give them a cash credit instead, gets a free By Annie trunk show. So we send them models to display with free patterns that they can sell. And so we really work hard to make them stay in business, keep them strong and vibrant. So to vote, you just go to lqscontest.com. Voting will open on Saturday, which is Local Quilt Shop Day. It runs all the way through the end of February, so you've got time, but don't wait too long. Interesting, last year, the shop who was the grand prize winner for Canada actually was the biggest vote getter of any store in the world. And they were the first day of the contest, they were at the top and they stayed there throughout the entire contest. I've never seen that happen before. Usually it's tooth and nail looking to see, how things are going, but they are a little tiny shop in Nova Scotia. and they have such a strong following. They do weekly lives, and they're just the nicest ladies that run that store. So what you do to vote is you just find a drop-down list that lists all the store's name. If your store's not there, there's a way to add it, but you click on that and you say something nice, what you like about that store. You can share a special story, and then we share all those comments with the store owners. And store owners tell me, I'm so sorry when that contest ends, because it's so nice to sit down every day and read all the nice things that people say. I mean, it makes me cry every time I start reading them, because it's just so touching to learn about those hardworking quilt shop owners and how much they are appreciated by their customers and us too. So thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah, the whole sewing world and sewing community is unlike anything else in the whole world. Let me make sure I have the link correct, and then I'll post it. lqscontest.com.
Yep, that's it.
All right, I'm going to post that in the chat there, and everybody can find that. So that is wonderful. I'm thrilled to share that. Yeah, I like to get on my soapbox every once in a while and say, support your local shops. Support your local shop. You know, there are times when you can't find something locally, and you shop online. I understand that. I'm not alone on that. But the other thing is that I would recommend very highly is if you're interested in Annie's products and your local shop doesn't carry those products, suggest it to them. And, you know, they can get in direct contact with you very easily and carry a variety of different things. So definitely ask and you may receive.
That's right, because stores want to sell what you want to buy. I mean, that's the bottom line. They're in it to make a living. And if it's something you want, they're willing to, usually, even if they don't carry it all the time, they're at least willing to special order it for you. And then more and more and more as people come in and ask for it. We've seen stores who now have whole by Annie rooms because they know what people want. And it's fabulous. It's great for all of us.
That is fantastic. So we're going to be wrapping up here shortly, but I just want to take a minute again to thank everybody for being here. This is a live show, so it was held on January 26th, 2024. Got that right. And it is available for replay. You can certainly share it to your page if you're on Facebook. I highly encourage you to do that. And then that way it will stay on your page, and it will also live on my Let's Go Sew with Joanne Banko YouTube channel. So you can watch it there. But thank you so much if you're here live. I know everybody's going to agree with me. We just, you know, I love you all. And when I say that, I don't say it flippantly at all. I mean it from the absolute tip of my toes to the top of my head. I appreciate everyone here. I feel so close to all of you, and just having you show up and then chat and share is just it's a beautiful thing, and it makes me just feel warm all over. I really love having you here. I hope you enjoy the content as well, and the camaraderie for sure, because that's a big part of it. But if you're watching on the replay, thank you for being here. I know sometimes you can't be here for the live, and be sure to leave your comments. I love to read your comments. It's easiest for me if you're leaving them on YouTube, because Facebook's a little harder to sort through. But you know, whatever, I try to find it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can always contact me at letsgosew.com. I love to help in any way, shape, or form I can in order to help you, you know, have a happy sewing life. But I do appreciate everybody being here. So we do have a few comments and questions though that I'm gonna pull up. Oh, I gotta say hi to Jackie. Jackie, I'm so glad you're here. Jackie's been I don't want to like get into your private life, but Jackie's had some struggles, and we are sending you warm, happy, healthy thoughts, and just so glad that you're here. And Remember, a merry heart doeth good like medicine. So this certainly creates a merry heart. And Bobby, thank you. Thank you for that comment. Anne, thank you so much. Kathleen, thank you, thank you, thank you. Dawn, thank you. Barbara, thank you. Thank you, Julie. There's Jackie again. Hey, Lynn, good to have you here. Yep, do that voting. Absolutely. Definitely. Sarah says she's got several shots. Well, aren't you a lucky duck to have several? Very good. Jackie's enjoying the show. Christy, thank you. Jan, love you too. Jan's going back to embroidery. Well, we are getting close to wrapping up, but like I said, I want to make sure that I answered any questions. Annie, to have you here is such a joy and a privilege, and it is a great time for anybody to ask questions. So let me bring up some that I had in the back here. For a couple just comments. Christy says she made the Lola pencil case. Yeah, out of their favorite fabric. That's so wonderful to be able to do that. It just
and I bet they do love them.
Yeah. My friend Reen Wilcoxon is here. Reen is another icon in the embroidery industry, and Reen.
Nice to meet you, Reen.
Yeah, a little sneak peek. Reen, I'll be announcing soon. She will be on my Tea and Tutorials show in February, so watch for more news on that. And Cheryl says and asks, she saw a trunk show by Annie. Yeah, if you can get to see a trunk show, that is a real treat. And she's wondering who sews all your samples, Annie. Perfect.
I have an amazing model maker named Marianne, who actually is here today. She lives in northern Utah, so about 4.5 hours away. So she comes down about once a month or so, and we spend a day or 2 or 3. This time we've spent 2.5 days cutting out models. Fabric had kind of built up on me over the last part of last year because we were busy getting ready for market. And then I was gone for a lot in December on family matters. So I came home to piles of fabric because we get lots of great fabric from different manufacturers. So Glow, my daughter-in-law who works with me, and I figured out what we wanted to make. And then I combined things, sent them off to the Long Armor, and then they came back. And so Marianne came down and we've been cutting. So my list had 62 projects, which the estimate said was 130 hours of cutting and almost 500 hours of sewing. So I figure it's going to keep her out of trouble for a while. And it's probably going to be another month before she needs to come back down and cut again. We didn't have all the fabric quilted, and we couldn't get that much cutting done in 2 days, obviously. So we've got enough, though, we figure, to keep her busy for at least 3 weeks, and then she'll come again. But she is an amazing sewer. When she came to interview, I said, please bring something that you made. And she brought a men's shirt that I would have sworn came from the highest end, department store. Beautifully done. And
better than a resume, huh?
She is so careful and precise. She started out being very timid and afraid to say anything, but she's found her voice and gained a lot of confidence. And yeah, she's just absolutely wonderful. I leave model making to her because I usually make 2 or 3 or 4 of each bag as I work through the model or the thing, and I always make one on camera. But I'm really happy when Marianne does the others because her work is better than mine. I will admit it. Well, she sews 30 to 40 hours a week. So, she sews a whole lot more than I do. I can tell when I haven't sewn for a while, I get a little bit rusty. So.
And having a great partnership like that just makes it so.
I've told her, if you ever quit, I'm closing the business down because there's no way I can do this. And I don't know that I could find somebody else locally. Well, I mean, she's not local anymore. She moved, but yeah, she's fabulous.
And then Christy has a really interesting comment. She says, yeah, with embroidery, fabric printing, sublimation capabilities, we have so many options for creativity. And Christy, thank you. You prompted me. I have another show come. My show's kind of got jammed up a little bit because of my, little glitch there
Time
that
off.
I had. But I've got another show on this coming Monday. So what is that date? 29? Yeah, 29. With Stephanie from So Stephanie Says. And Stephanie is a sublimation, vinyl, embroidery, cutting expert on all those things. So if you're watching this live, please join me on this same channels Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time for that show. And of course, there will be a replay on that as well. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. We have so many opportunities. And then Ann had an interesting, Ann Philbeck does long arm quilting. And we didn't even talk about that. You know, we talked about embroidery in the hoop, but long arming is a way, if you have that potential, you can do big by Annie and then chop it up into whatever you want. So she said she put her first quilt together with stitches on her machine. So, and I'd love to see your work in person someday. I'm sure it's absolutely fabulous. And yeah, Jan liked the decorative stitching tip. That works really well. And then Diane has a question. She says every time she uses washable stabilizer, the project becomes so stiff. Is there a trick? Well, if you want all of the stiffness out, it has to be thoroughly washed, because that stuff it turns to goo when you, no other way to say it, it turns to goo when it gets wet. So personally, I usually just wash mine, rinse it out in hot water, and then use a little bit of laundry detergent to wash it. I usually wash it in a bucket because I'm not washing big pieces, but you can throw it in the wash machine. And then rinsing is usually what takes it out. When we do it for freestanding lace, we don't generally want to rinse all that out. We want to have some of that left so that it functions almost as a starch and keeps that piece stiff. But if you want all of it out, you have to wash it really well. And then another little trick you might want to try is actually doing the final rinse with a little bit of fabric softener, liquid fabric softener. Just swish it around in the water, dissolve it. That just helps break down any excess there and makes it really good. Okay, let's see. Christy has a question. You okay for a couple more questions, Annie?
Sure.
Okay. She wants to know, are you planning a sample zipper color sampler with true colors besides the color card? You have one for mesh and that helps. Any thoughts on that?
We have looked into doing that and the cost is just prohibitive. So probably not. But what I always recommend is that as you get zippers, cut off a little piece of the tape and glue it or tape it onto your printed color card. Another option that we have is we sell a ring of all 24 colors or all 48 colors, and you can buy those in 48, 24-inch or 30-inch. I keep a ring. I take the zippers out of the bags so I can really see the color. Plastic sometimes makes them look a little different. Keep them on a ring, and when we're ready to choose zippers for a project, we just lay the ring of zippers out on top of our project, and we can see, you know, compare which one looks the best. It's amazing to me how what you think is going to be the perfect color isn't always the one. So with mesh, it was easier to cut little pieces and put them together, but zippers, it's a whole different animal how those are produced, and it just was cost prohibitive for us.
Makes perfect sense. And thank you, Mary, for your comment. Very good. Thank you, Susan, for your comment. Appreciate that. And Cindy, thank you. Thank you as well. And let's see. We did have a question. Jan wants to know, will you have more new patterns this year? Jan has probably tried just about all of them, so she's always anxious for more.
We actually are working on new patterns that we will release at the H&H show in Chicago. That's a wholesale show that is in early May this year. So we've got one that's ready, that's actually out to outside testers. Two more that I have to get things sewn this weekend so I can send to my illustrator to draw the pictures, and a couple more. If all goes as planned and I can get what I want done, I'm going to have 6 new patterns. is probably going to
Excellent.
be closer to 4, but then we
Okay.
still have fall market, and we'll hope to have at least 4 for there. So yeah, we're working hard. Trying to fit that in with everything else is sometimes hard, but I'm getting there.
Very good. Excellent. That's exciting. And then let's see. We had a couple questions on this. I'm sorry for the one I missed earlier. It just kind of slipped by me. But I think, Anne, you're asking the same thing. A couple questions about your pattern holder. I think they're asking about what's behind you. I
Oh,
think
this behind me?
that's my
Okay.
guess. But
This is
correct
a
me if I'm
pattern
wrong.
called ruler wrap, and it's designed, there's 2 sizes in the pattern. It's designed so you can hang it on a door. It fits in between your doorknobs and stuff, or you can fold it up and carry it to class. But it's got lots of pockets for different size rulers. At the bottom, you can put up to an 18 by 24 inch mat and up to 20.5 inch mat or ruler, and then fold it up to carry to class. We do have, I don't think, we used to have a pattern called pattern organizers that was just a piece of canvas with vinyl pockets on it, but I don't think we even sell that pattern anymore. We do have one that is still on our website, which is the very first pattern I made, called hanging organizer, which is kind of similar to this. It
Okay.
too is made with canvas and vinyl, and it includes 2 versions, one for quilting supplies and one for scrapbooking supplies, because I was doing lots of scrapbooking. So that might be one you might want to look at, because you could easily customize it to be just what you want. But very, very handy to have and be able to see everything at a glance, but then take it with you when you want to go. And
And
I don't know if I said the name of the pattern is ruler wrap.
okay. And your website is highly searchable. I mean, if you forgot the whole thing about the tea cozy today, just think time for tea. Type in time for tea, you'll find it.
Yeah, we are working on a new update, a new website that a year ago we said it's going to be ready in a month, and we're still
That's
working
such
on
a
it, but
big job.
hopefully by the end of March. And it's going to be amazingly searchable, because right now you can only basically search for products. But once that one's done, if you type in tea, you'll find a link to this video, and you'll find any blog posts that we did on that
Yeah.
pattern. So much more helpful. And I can't wait till that's ready to go.
And then you also can just, I mean, just start at the beginning and browse through all of them, because it's so much fun to see all the different options, and you'll see what snags, what catches your eye. So
Right.
if
And
if you
if you click on the patterns category on those top menu bars, you'll get a drop down menu that has things categorized. So like there's a section on home decor. The teapot is probably in there, with a mixer cover and a sewing machine cover and things like that. So if you want to kind of focus and look for a particular thing. The other thing that's really helpful at our website is we have up at the top a photo contest / gallery link. And we do a monthly photo contest for people to send in pictures of the bags they make. All of those are on there. So if you want to make a tea time, you can type, or time for tea, you can type that in and see any models that anyone else has submitted to the contest. So you can get ideas for how they did it. You
nice.
can search by fabric line, by Tula Pink, if you want to see all the bags made with Tula Pink's fabric. And then over on the left side, there's one that says by Annie models, and that will show you the 2,000 or more models that we've made. So, and again, can be filtered the same way. So lots of inspiration on there.
Oh,
And
that makes,
again, we also do a live with Annie every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Mountain
yes,
Time. And
please.
those are full of great information to get your creative juices going.
So I'm bringing you up full screen so you can talk for just a minute about that. Your YouTube channel is what
At
exactly?
Patterns by Annie. It's at Patterns by Annie for Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all of those.
Okay.
And we have Live with Annie. Again, this is our 4th year, so I think we have over 140 episodes now. Those are all on there that you can go back and watch. And then lots of other tutorials too that are available on our website. There's a tutorials tab. So lots of information. Uh-oh. Can't hear you.
Sorry, I muted myself. I didn't want you to hear my clicking when I was typing. The Wednesday show is absolutely a must see. I happen to have a lot of times appointments on Wednesdays because it's just kind of the middle of the week thing for me. But I always go back and watch it and love those shows. So, like I said, I will be a future guest. So I'm looking forward to that.
I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
Me too. All right. Somebody asked me, I'm going to do this really quick. Somebody asked me to show what I'm wearing. So I'll just spread out the scarf. This is a pashmina scarf from my book, Wrapped in Embroidery. So this
pretty.
was embroidered on silk dupioni and then applied as a band so that the wrong side of the pashmina looks as pretty as it does on the right side. So I've just got a navy blue sweater on and got this wrapped around and pinned up at the shoulder. And because I'm moving around, I'm having to reset it each and every time. But thank you for asking, Bobby. Bobby Wade asked that question. So, all right, one more here that I think is really important. Is there a list someplace where your Annie trunk shows are scheduled?
Yes, if you sign up for our email news list, we send out an email every week showing trunk shows that are coming, say, in the next month. And basically, as soon as we've packed the models to go, it goes on the list. And we try to ship at least 2 weeks ahead of time. So you'll see those. That's the best place. If you want to plan out a little further, contact us because we do. I mean, I've got one store who has scheduled bi-monthly trunk shows for the rest of the year. So I can give you an idea of, maybe if you're looking to travel somewhere, if there might be a trunk show somewhere. And then on Live with Annie, we feature the stores that have trunk shows and talk about them. So we share that information there too. But in that email list is probably the best place to find ones that are up and coming.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to bring Cindy up here for just a sec because Cindy's a friend who's always faithful too. She's going to have to watch the replay, but you can pop in and say hi. Hi, Cindy. Glad to have you here. And Barbara enjoyed seeing the scarf. Yeah, I'm just wearing it over a navy blue sweater. I got jeans on the bottom, and it's just one of those great ways to dress up an outfit and stay warm at the same time. I'm always cold, unless it's like literally about 85, 90 degrees. I'm covered up a little bit.
Me too. I've been like this a few times today because it's cold in this room.
That's just me. Well, you know what? We covered just so many beautiful things here today. Great questions, great friends here with us. And Annie, I just can't thank you enough for being here and joining me on Tea and Tutorials today. It's just been a joy.
It was my pleasure. I enjoyed it so much too. I love visiting with you and can't wait to have you on Live with Annie too. So thank you.
I can't wait to see you again. So we'll say goodbye. And until we see you again, bye from Annie, bye from me. And I wish you a world full of pretty stitches. Hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.